This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show.
Let's do this.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 117. And tonight I'm joined by Grace.
Hello.
Neph. This will be the part where you say something, Neph.
Hello.
Damn.
Amazing. Hey.
And Thalen.
Hey there.
Alright, we're off to a very professional start.
Other podcasts must hate us.
Please clap.
I'm sure they probably do at this point.
So I totally forgot to press push to talk.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
We're pros. It's great.
Neph, why have you not joined us much? You're clearly comedy gold. This is potentially going to be a weird week because we've been on voice for a little bit trying to brainstorm topics, and when I first asked for topics, it led to about 15 minutes of radio silence, but we've managed to cobble some together. It was kind of a weird week for most of us, I think.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wrote a little bit about on my blog, and I don't necessarily agree with, is there has been a lot of stuff in the media this week talking about the decline of Pokemon Go, and as if we have reached some peak Pokemon already, and everything is going to go downhill from here. And to some extent, given how viral it went, how quickly it went, I just wanted to say, duh.
Not everybody who picked it up to try it out continued playing it. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah.
My favorite thing is I've seen those statistics. Like, yeah, it plateaued and then dropped off a little bit. But wow, is that a really stable plateau?
Yeah, exactly. Like it is a super slow bleed.
Yeah. If it's bleeding people, every MMO on the planet wishes that it could bleed people like Pokemon Go has been doing. Like, when did it drop? I don't even remember. It's been like a month, right?
It's been a month, yeah. It's been roughly a month.
So, a full month, some of these, like, WoW's numbers dropped precipitously after the first month, and it was selling out everywhere. Like, much less other MMOs.
Well, and the no-brainer here is, one, this has been hyped to all ends of the earth with people, and you've got people who would never probably play in the first place downloading it to try it, and then, of course some of them are not going to get it, or some of them are going to decide it's not really that fun, and it's not been the easiest launch. It's been frustrating, and there's probably a lot of people that said, I will try once the servers stabilize, and have put it away.
I mean, I was almost in that camp for a while. It got so frustrating that I felt like it was almost not worth my time.
Yeah. I definitely know that feeling. I mean, on the same token, I've seen a bunch of people for whom it has taken this long for them to download it and actually look at it.
Yeah.
I think that it hinges more than anything on them getting a content patch out.
Well, it hinges on a lot of things, honestly. Like, because you live in Seattle. You have a glorious experience playing this game. I live in Tulsa. Tulsa is an okay-ish experience. When I go visit family in the countryside, it is a miserable experience.
I believe
that. I live in a small town, and it is... Now, I have recently discovered a couple of hotspots, and so maybe things will get better, but directly around where I live and work, it is pretty much a Pokemon wasteland.
Yep.
Well, my neighborhood is in the middle of the burbs, and right now I show 2 Pokemon nearby, and they're both Pidgeys. And that's kind of par for the course. Like, it's this wasteland of Weedles, Pidgeys, Zubats, and Rattatas.
Yeah, what's really interesting for me is being in a fairly crowded city and going to places where it's, hundreds of people playing every night constantly. You do get more rare spawns, but that leaves me with less to do. Like, it isn't in a lot of ways, it's not a slow. It hasn't been a slow burn. It's I've got like 102 or so Pokemon in my Pokedex at this point, and the prospect of me finding new ones is virtually zero, even if I like went traveling or whatever.
Well, and honestly, what makes it miserable about being in a lower density area is it kind of disincentivizes me to go actually do the things that the app wants me to do. Like, I go on a walk, I'm going to maybe see 2 Pokemon.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think they decided to use, basically Pokemon show up more often in places with more cellular activity, which seems to be the exact opposite of what you would expect. Because, in the games, Pokemon don't show up when you're in a town. They show up when you go outside of the town and go wander around.
Well, and I think that theory is an okay theory, but the base pop is too sparse.
It's way too low, yes.
Like say I don't know what number it's based on, but they need to crank it up so that, sure, if you're in a hotspot, you're seeing Pokemon constantly, but if you're out of a hotspot, you're still fairly regularly seeing Pokemon, and it needs to be something other than a wasteland of Zubats.
I feel like what they should do is they should... What I think would be an interesting way of doing it is if you've got an average... Find out what their bell curve looks like, and increase spawns and rare spawns based on high levels of cellular activity or low levels. So you can kind of hit this middle where one way or the other, if you're outside of like their like average bar, if you're either in a really crowded place or in a really uncrowded place, you'll see more interesting Pokemon.
Right. I think they need to incentivize exploration and moving around. Because like right now there are 3 or 4 hotspots in town that I can go to, and I'm going to find hot and cold running Pokemon 24/7. But it would be really cool if like that really neat overlook that you have to drive an hour to get to
had something super rare just because there's nobody there.
Right, because like you're the only person that's come there that week, so there's a super powerful Pokemon waiting for you.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
And they also need to work on how types function in the game, as in there seems to be very little rhyme or reason as to what kind of Pokemon you're getting. There's some, but not really much. Like so it's mostly climate based, so I don't hardly see any fire Pokemon. And I see a ton of grass Pokemon. But if I go to the rock quarry, which should absolutely have rock Pokemon, I'm still getting grass Pokemon.
Yeah, it's like not quite granular enough.
Yeah.
It's like really, really broad.
Well, and I've heard like Electabuzz, for example, tends to hang out at theme parks. I will probably never see an Electabuzz.
Yeah, right. I still have not seen a wild Pikachu.
I have, but I have no idea what prompted it.
I've seen exactly one when I was eating dinner, and it ran away.
Oh.
I saw the shadow of one. I didn't actually find it.
So, okay, speaking of that, do traditional starters run away more often for you than anything else?
No.
Because, like, for me, Bulbasaur,
I
Squirtles,
haven't encountered any.
Those guys, like, run after 2 tosses.
For me, it's like Clefairies. They run just constantly. They're just, like, immediately out.
See, that's weird, because, like, I have caught almost enough Clefairies to evolve it. Like,
I've caught a ton of Clefairies.
But I haven't had any particular difficulty catching them.
They're always, like, more difficult to catch than they're worth, for me.
That's Oddish for me for some reason. I always have trouble catching Oddish.
For me, it's Weedles and Caterpies. Like, they just knock the balls away and eventually run, and it's stupid.
It's so frustrating when it's the stupid trash Pokemon that do that.
It's like, I just wasted 5 Pokeballs on a crappy little Caterpie. What am I doing wrong with my life?
For me, it's been Growlithe. I tend to waste a lot of Pokeballs on Growlithe.
Considering that I never see Growlithe, I would absolutely waste a lot of Pokeballs on any Growlithe I ran into.
I'm in the desert, so I am surrounded by fire Pokemon.
I actually got a Rapidash the other day, and I was pleased as hell because I've seen exactly one Ponyta. So there was no way in hell I was ever going to upgrade into a Rapidash.
Yeah, I've stopped playing for an entirely different reason than it not being fun. That's because I'm in the States and don't have data, so unless I have Wi-Fi, I ain't catching anything, which means I'm pretty stationary.
That's frustrating.
That does suck.
Well, and pay-as-you-go data is still frustratingly expensive.
It is.
Yeah. And unless you're going to like a Starbucks or someplace with free Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
I know the university nearby has free Wi-Fi across campus, but it's also been like over 110 degrees outside, so no.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my problem here. It's been like over 90, 95 degrees every day until like yesterday. And so I had my little routine of like, oh, I'll go for a walk and try to see if there are any Pokemon. And I just haven't been because the weather is so crap.
Yeah, it's been hotter than usual here, and so I haven't gone out, but that's also lazy, not because it's actually super hot here.
Well, it's 100 here, but it's like, heat index of like 105-ish or so. But
the heat index here has been over 100 degrees
here
every day.
Here it's been either super hot or storming every day, so that's really cut into my walking.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 80s here, but there's also no air conditioning, which is a little...
Well, and what's interesting is, like, people are still going out and playing Pokemon, but they're doing it from their cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple of hot spots where over lunch, people will be running, like, lures all over the place. And you can go out and hang out in your car and catch Pokemon. And I did that a couple days this week, and it was cool, but it was also kind of frustrating because I never could really get a spot that covered enough of the Pokestops to make it really worthwhile.
Yeah.
But like I was saying earlier, the biggest thing that stopped me from going out in the evenings is just that I know without running an incense, I'm going to see 2-3 Pokemon, and they're more than likely going to be trash Pokemon.
Yeah.
So
I mean, at least if the tracker was working, like I could, if I saw something interesting show up nearby, I could try and find it. But right now, interesting things nearby are just like, oh, there's something interesting nearby, and there's no way I'm going to be able to figure out where it is.
Exactly. I mean, I've tried. Like, I've seen shadows that I'm not 100% sure what they are. I've seen a ton of Tangelas, but I've never been able to track one down. Like, earlier I saw a Slowking on the tracking radar, but, there's no way in hell I even have a clue where that's at.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm in a very windy, curvy neighborhood, and that could be anywhere.
Yeah, I suspect that we're going to see a relatively quick content patch that fixes tracking, but also adds other stuff like trading and other features. Because I think that it needs the infusion.
And the other interesting thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks is things like Pokevision have come out. And the problem there is it's still a dead area around me. Like, I look up on Pokevision and, oh, look, there's some more, Weedles that I don't need.
They need to do something about dead areas. Although they are actively soliciting, Pokestop locations and other relevant things, so...
I mean, it's hard, though. Like, I mean, I think about where I live and work, and it's not like there's a lot of landmarks or interesting things to look at that I could even reasonably try to nominate as a Pokestop, Yeah. It makes it, I mean, I understand, like, I look around me and I understand why there's not anything there already, because there's, not a lot of interesting stuff nearby.
Yeah, I suspect we're going to see some changes to the way that works. If they're smart, we're going to see some changes about the way that works.
Well, Ingress worked a certain way, and it worked fine, and at this point we're just leaning too much on the way Ingress worked. Yeah. And it doesn't quite work for Pokemon. I mean, and it's not even healthy for Pokemon players to function quite the same way that Ingress did, because like a lot of the places that were Ingress stops aren't necessarily good places, for kids to go find Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that was their comment. That was the Niantic CEO's comment was, we used Ingress data, but it doesn't serve Pokemon Go as well as we'd hoped.
Yeah, and I mean, I think about like all the kids that I've run into in my neighborhood who play, and like we're grown-ups, and if we want to go into town and drive to the park and sit where there are actually 2 Pokestops and a gym, then we can do that whenever we feel like it or have time. But kids can't do that. They're limited to wherever they can run around or ride their bike, and so it's even more crappy, I think, for kids who, in theory, are a large fraction of the intended audience, perhaps, for this game.
Yeah, and the big thing is it just needs to be an equitable experience for everyone. Like, if you are in Los Angeles or New York, you shouldn't have a vastly superior experience to someone in the middle of Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all of this said, back to the original statement, I don't think it's going away. Like, I'm even seeing more people with Pokemon Go than I did the first couple weeks. I mean, they might be cycling through people, but yeah, I mean, I'm still seeing people in their car swiping furiously because it's a kind of unmistakable motion.
Yeah.
I had my first conversation with someone at work who actually plays this week, too.
2 of my coworkers are hooked, like, one of which is regularly putting down, lures because there's one reachable from his desk.
What I think would be interesting would be if they changed lures to not require a Pokestop.
Isn't that just an incense, though?
No, but to make it work for everyone. I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It would actually be cool if they made the lure into something that put up a temporary Pokestop. So not only did you get the extra Pokemon, but you got, every once in a while you could get extra supplies too.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Like you put up a temporary Pokestop that counts as a lured Pokestop, or maybe even just have temporary Pokestop as a thing, and you can lure those. And it's like, sure, you get people putting them up like in their home, but it also means that you can spontaneously generate events.
Yeah, and it means that, those kids that are running around can actually put up a stop and hang out in a place that's, safe and appropriate for them to be.
Yeah, like you can have a Pokemon Go birthday party. You can have, and it's like, sure, and you can set those prices to be, something that you don't want to just do casually, but
the option would be there.
Yeah, I mean, sure, maybe you pay $10 to do it, but okay, for the right audience who wants to set up a fun event, like that's a perfectly reasonable cost. And then what that does, like the nice part about that is that gives them a whole bunch of data about where maybe they should put permanent Pokestops.
Yeah.
Like if you see people regularly hitting the same places, maybe you just put one there. And then they happen organically, which I think would be great. As opposed to being based on what somebody who happens to know the right person to email wants.
The other thing that I've noticed, and they really need to clean some of this up, is there is an awful lot of gerrymandering going on with Pokestops. To where it is not exactly at the thing that it's actually supposed to be representing. And it's not even close.
Yeah, and that's deliberate.
Because, for example...
On the part of the people who submitted them, it's deliberate.
Like, I think I've talked about this before. There's a gym in my neighborhood, and it's from a family that does set decorations, and there's a giant King Tut head in the back of their house, along the back fence. So that is supposed to be the gym for my neighborhood. But I can be standing in front of their house and not be able to reach the gym. I can be standing in front of actually out of my car, standing in front of the King Tut head and not reach the gym. The gym is much further down the street.
Now, I don't know if they're turning off portal submissions in Ingress also turns this off or not, but what you could do is try going into Ingress and submitting a correction for that portal.
I feel like there needs to be a less reliance on Ingress.
Oh yes, there absolutely should.
I don't want to go to Ingress's website or any of that nonsense to do Pokemon stuff.
Well, the thing that I don't know if we've even talked about this here, but one of the stupid little tricks that I learned is you can open Ingress on your phone and see where all the XM is, and that should represent the highest density of Pokemon. And in my neighborhood, like, there's next to no XM at all, which explains why there's very few spawns.
Yeah.
Basically, they need to spend some time tweaking. Also, they really need to get a community person.
They at least are looking for that.
Yeah. They really needed to have one before they launched, but yeah, they need one bad.
I understand why they thought they didn't need one, but they were incorrect.
Well, and what's happening is Sylph Road is basically turned into the unofficial community for this game. And, like, they're releasing unofficial patch notes. And if you want to control what is actually in your patch notes, you need to probably release them yourself. Because, people are setting up proxies on their machine so that they can packet sniff what's coming and going from the client and actually getting raw data that way. And that's what's
a terrible situation.
Which is a terrible situation. But, Ingress, or not Ingress, Niantic, you have led people to do this by giving them zero information.
Yeah, not talking to people will not result in them just being like, okay, I guess we don't know anything. No. Like, this is a game that makes people rabid about it. And because of it, they're going to decompile your client like they did to find out things like the 40 trainer level cap. I mean, it's so, yeah, they've set this entirely up themselves.
And, like, whether or not you like it is irrelevant. That's reality. I mean, frankly, it's the reality that, like, Bungie wasn't prepared for when they launched Destiny.
Oh, absolutely. And they're getting better about it. Like, they have, bi-weekly, events that explain what's going on as a result of the lack of communication at launch.
Yeah, and the not realizing MMOs are a different beast than other games. Like, nobody's data mining Call of Duty to find out what the next, like, cool gun is. But people absolutely do that with MMOs because they're big time investments.
And essentially, I don't think they realized they created an MMO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to do this speaking of MMOs segue, but I think we've wrapped this one up for the most part. And when we were trying to brainstorm topics, quite honestly, like, the only thing I've done this week is play World of Warcraft other than our raid night. Because this patch and playing dress up and going out and collecting appearances to play dress up has been kind of dominating my life. That and leveling all of the things to 100.
Yeah, and I'm in pretty much the same boat. Like, I've done a little bit of other stuff this week, but mainly I've been playing World of Warcraft and actually playing it and enjoying it instead of sitting around in my garrison passively making gold and hating life.
That alone was a huge thing. I mean, I realize it was entirely my own fault for sitting in the garrison and making free gold, but it's free gold. It's hard not to, like, cycle through all your characters.
I have no difficulty not doing that.
Oh god, I do. Like, because I've never had gold in these games, and if you're gonna make it, like, relatively easy, because I don't play auction houses. I am horrible at that. The only way I have ever made gold is by going out and killing things, and that is the absolute wrong way to make gold in most games. So giving me a push button get gold mechanic was kind of seductive.
And I mean, I like playing the auction house sometimes, but I haven't been doing it much because it's so much easier to just push button get gold. And man, it is time consuming to go through when you have, I mean, I think now I have like 15 or 16 level 100 characters, and to go through all of those garrisons and just not even like mining and herbing and any of that stuff, but just logging in and, doing all of their missions and getting the garrison resources and trading stuff that needs to be traded is super, super time consuming. And by the time that I did that, I didn't want to do anything else in the game, even if I had time.
Well, and honestly, part of the thing with Garrisons that killed it for me was I used to actually, I mean, the way I would make money on the auction house was selling raw resources. I'd go mine, I'd go skin, and those were activities that I found relaxing. Like flying loops around a zone, picking up ore nodes. I found that insanely relaxing, and it was just chill to do that for a while and talk to people that happened to be online. And then Garrisons came along and completely took farming ore out of the equation. And now they've kind of undone that, it sounds, for Legion, that you actually really are going to be going back and mining and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's their intent anyway. I don't want to get into what I think of some of their choices about bound crafting mats and things like that, but I do think it's much better for the game to not just dump infinite resources on top of everyone.
So I absolutely set foot back in the game after the patch with the intent of going off and farming appearance stuff all the time. But the truth is, like, I've really enjoyed the class changes so far. I've been shocked how much more enjoyable a lot of them are. And I talked about Survival Hunter and Combat Rogue a bit last week, but this week I've been playing a lot of Demonology Warlock, which is a finger wiggler and not a class that I would normally ever play with any seriousness. And I don't really know how to explain how they tweaked it, but mostly it feels like all of the classes, they simply remove the buttons that you shouldn't be using anyway. Because that was like always the confusing thing on a lot of the specs was there were abilities that you should never use with a given spec. Like, these things aren't for your spec, but you still have them. And, like, you don't understand why you have them, but they're a trap. You shouldn't ever use them. So they've gone through and whittled it down to where you're a Demonology Warlock. You have these abilities, period. You're an Affliction Warlock. You have a different set of abilities. And these are only the ones that you should use now. And it mostly feels a lot better just because, like, it takes the guesswork of, am I playing this spec correctly? Should I care about this ability? Should I care about this buff? Removing all of the buffs from the game feels weird, but it definitely feels like it's probably a good change.
I don't have super strong feelings about the buff removals. Like, I think it's weird. It feels very, very strange not having them after so long. And it sort of, I don't know, it keeps sort of homogenizing everything because there's, it doesn't matter what classes you have in your raid, and you might not even pay attention much because you certainly don't have to worry about any one class bringing a buff.
Isn't that a good thing?
I mean, it is, yes and no, because, like, on one hand, it's good that, well, we have to have someone play a shaman because, we need bloodlust, whatever. Like, it's good that they got rid of that sort of thing, but on the other hand, it's like, well, we don't care about buffs, and arcane mages are OP right now, so we need everybody to be an arcane mage. So, I mean, I don't know, that's just an example, but
yeah, I could see it definitely being a problem in, like, hardcore raids where you should be playing the thing that's the most OP right now that's delivering the most damage, but I feel like on the same side, it's probably liberating to a lot of more casual raids where we just need some DPS and we need some tanks and we need some heals, and anything that we have in that combination should work okay because we're no longer relying on, okay, we're only at 7 of 9 possible buffs. Who can we swap out to get all 9 possible buffs?
I can say I'm grateful that I no longer have to memorize like 10,000 different hunter pets and which one brings the obscure buff that the raid still needs.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I reported something incorrectly last time. It's not that marksmen completely lost their pets, it's that they have the lone wolf thing that they've had for the last bit, where you can run petless.
they tried to take it completely away from that spec, and I think there was some serious outrage. Rightly
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of a petless hunter, I mean, I can see it being handy in raiding, but it kind of is not a hunter. Like, hunter is a pet class.
I
Yeah.
remember when it was forced in raiding.
Well, yeah, or we ran wolves on passive, because wolves gave us a buff no matter what. I think, like, Shan always had something special. I think she had, like, one of those wind snake things that she ran around with. But I think the rest of us, like, mostly ran wolves, because wolves gave us a passive buff and we didn't have to worry about it.
It's always funny to me, because one of the reasons that I never really got into hunter was because I didn't like pet management. And there was no, like, archer class for me to play that wasn't a pet class.
Well, that exists now. It's just marksman with lone wolf. But that's been in this entire expansion. I mean, Warlord was when the lone wolf talent went in.
And they gave frost mages sort of a similar thing this time around too. It's another
so they
thing.
don't have to have a pet?
Yeah, they have a talent that will get rid of it if they want to. I don't actually know how good or not it is, because I'm weird and I actually like the frost mage pet. But
I liked the frost mage pet. I just don't like animal pets.
Man, the thing I really want for hunters is I want the ability to ride around on my pet. Like, if you have a pet that is of a reasonable rideable class, you should be able to use it as your mount.
Like a chocobo.
Yeah, exactly. So, like...
Yes, I think battle chocobos are really weird.
Battle chocobos are weird, but it would still be cool, like, to be able to just hop on your Ravager or your whatever the hell you happen to be fighting as at the moment, and, you know, it's now your mount. And it can't be that hard to shim on a saddle onto a pet, because that's most of what the mounts are, is a pet graphic with a saddle latched onto it.
Decades of animators and artists just twitched and they don't know.
They rolled over in their early graves.
Yeah.
well, I mean, half of these things are already mounts. You know?
Yeah.
That piece shouldn't be too terrible. I mean, we have like 1,000 different bears already, so if I have a bear pet, I should be able to just hop on and ride around.
And be awesome with your bear cavalry.
Yes. But there's been a bunch of changes also that I'm not thrilled with, I guess. I don't know, there's things that I am still getting used to, and there's things that I'm not sure if it's just me being cranky at something that changed versus actually not liking the change. And, you know, as much as it may be helpful to have those stripped down action bars and a lot of abilities pruned, for sort of ease of learning new classes, it feels weird. I mean, some classes more than others, and some classes have been sort of more drastically changed. So, like, my mage still feels pretty much the same. Most of the specs are still similar, most of the key abilities are there, and the changes are, you know, there's things like the spell animations are different and flashier and look cooler. So I'm pretty happy with my mage. Like, Hunter changed a lot. Like, my Beastmaster Hunter does not feel super great right now. You know, and we're in that place where, well, when you get your artifact weapon or whatever, when the expansion comes out, then it'll fill in some of the holes. But right now, it feels crappy and I don't enjoy it.
Well, that was a huge problem with the Blood Death Knight, is one of the holes that I was noticing is apparently filled by the artifact weapon attack, but I don't have that yet, so I was having to...
Weapon attack?
Yep. Having the artifact weapon gives you a special attack, or attacks, depending on...
Oh,
I think...
Lord.
Yeah.
Yep.
Artifact weapons have a talent tree.
And
Wow.
it's you know, it's okay, because I know that, you know, within a month or so of the expansion coming out, you'll fill out that tree and you'll have all of the possible skills and abilities from it. But what worries me is what happens at the end of that expansion. Like, Blizzard have a 100% track record of cool new things that come with, an expansion get left in that expansion.
Yeah.
And so, putting abilities and talents and things into this weapon that we're pretty sure is not going to follow us around just feels gross.
Yeah.
Well, I hear artifact weapon with talent trees and stuff, and I remember legendary weapons from Lord of the Rings Online, and what an incredible boring slog they turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, you just described to me something that's going to get patched out, like, straight up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I have no illusions about that. Like, I'm excited about them in the short term because they're going to make playing some of these classes feel better. But
Yeah, that doesn't super compel me. It's like,
no. Well, I mean,
it takes a thing that doesn't feel good and make it feel better, and it's a like short-term stopgap.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I'm excited about them for is like the skins. So, there's lots of different achievements and quests and whatever that unlock different skins for the weapons. And so that makes me happy. There'd be interesting things with that, but I don't know what happens to those when the next expansion comes out. I've heard some already disconcerting things about how you might not be able to get those anymore once the next expansion comes out, and it's like, ugh. I'm really pretty sick of Blizzard removing content when a new expansion comes out.
The worst thing is that that's actually a potentially really cool idea. Like,
yeah, if they actually ran with it for a long time.
Yeah, like every expansion, you get new abilities and different abilities, and there's like an upper limit on the number of new. Like, everybody wants new abilities every expansion, but like, you can't just keep getting new abilities because then your bar gets really cluttered and you have to do these like massive declutterings. But if you had like this artifact weapon, it's like this expansion's artifact weapon has these abilities. And like you collect more and more artifact weapons, but you can't use them all at once, like that's suddenly really compelling.
Well, and it would be cool because then that gives you a different palette of things to build content towards. Like, this expansion, you have these new abilities to now make players come up with solutions for. And then the next expansion comes out and you get a new set of abilities. It's kind of like the idea of the Guild Wars 2 weapons, but done in a more interesting way, to where you're inheriting abilities from the weapons. But I have zero faith that these are going to last past an expansion.
Yeah. And like that's to draw on the MMO that I'm actually playing. That's the thing about Final Fantasy that keeps me around. If they add something, you can be damn sure that they're going to support it. And there's very, very few like weird missing things like that.
Well, like I think Belle and I were talking about this recently too, how frustrating it is that not only are there a lot of things removed from WoW or not supported anymore, but some of those things have a long quest chain or lore associated with them that's just gone. Like the last two expansions have had, a legendary item that every person could get through a long quest chain, and they've removed them or are about to remove the current one, and those have huge long quest chains with a ton of lore associated with, and there's no reason to take that out. Like, it's not like those items are so super powerful that you can't, you're going to want to keep using them forever into a new expansion. I mean, it's a ring. It doesn't even have an appearance to collect, but if somebody wanted to go back and see what the main thrust of the story of this expansion is, there's a huge gaping hole there.
Which goes back to the problem that I have with World of Warcraft over the last several expansions is there is this general feeling I get from the development that nothing that happened before this expansion matters. And that's why we're seeing, boosting so prevalent, and they're giving them away when you buy an expansion, is that they really don't want you to play the old content. They realize it's broken. They realize it doesn't work as well as the new content. So instead, they'd rather just skip you past it so that you never have to see it.
It's like, we're ashamed of our old content because our new content is so much better. You should just go straight to it.
But the frustrating thing is like some of that old content is objectively some of the best stuff they've ever done. And if you don't ever see it, then, I mean, it feels like a waste. Like, I would hate to know that there are people that have never seen Blackwing Lair.
Well, I've got bad news for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just sad to think that. Or Black Temple, or Ulduar, or, these are really cool things. And honestly, that's one of the things I dug about Rift is they put in ways for people to see that stuff in a solo way, where you're just going through the lore and you at least get to see the big epic zone and the fights and the lore that goes along with it. But it constantly feels like, okay, the new shiny thing is out, now we're going to sweep everything that happened before under the rug and hopefully nobody notices.
Yeah. Well, and it's even stranger than that, I think, because they do that, and there's this absolutely, like, this front end telling you, like, don't pay any attention to anything that came before. But then they do still have this cosmetic system. They have pets and mounts and things in those old raids, and they keep putting new ones in there every once in a while. They'll maybe in the middle of an expansion, there'll be a patch that'll put a bunch of new pets in some old raid. And so it's very strange mixed signals.
It feels
it's like they're convinced that players are only interested in getting a tangible reward from a thing. And so they get rid of the quests and stuff because those rewards, those aren't useful anymore anyway. So why would anybody want them? But pets are evergreen.
I'd be really interested to find out what happens to time walking when the expansion comes out. Like, is that just going to go away? Is it going to get retweaked to provide Legion era rewards? And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, time walking is a system that they patched in that basically you have weekends. So this will be Lich King weekend, and queuing for Lich King dungeons gives you Warlords era rewards. I mean, they're kind of crappy rewards, but they're still Warlords equivalent rewards, and it scales you down to the dungeon level. And it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, there are ways to get decent rewards by doing them, so there's enough carrot there to keep players regularly queuing for it. But I wonder, like, is that a system that's just going to go the way of the dodo, just like everything else from Warlords, or are they going to update it to make it evergreen?
I suspect, I hope that they update it. I don't know if they actually will. This is just another example of a thing that sort of frustrates and annoys me, though, because, like, one of the things that Final Fantasy XIV does an amazing job of is giving people incentive to go back and do all sorts of different content. And WoW came up with this system, which is pretty nice, to scale you down to these old dungeons and, queue up for a group and run them again and get current level rewards and appropriate to your level. So if it's a level 70 dungeon, I can run it on my level 70 alt and get level 70 gear and be in a group with people who are level 100 and scaled down with me, and they're getting loot appropriate for them. Like, that's all great. It's only for one weekend a month, and it rotates between the different expansions, so you don't, you can't just, I really want to run those old Lich King dungeons I like. No, well, there's going to be 2 months before those come back around again. I mean, right now, I think they have a bunch of them in a row, but for a while it was, they alternate these events with a PvP event and a pet battle event and whatever other things you might not care about at all. And so it's weird, it's like this whole big chunk of content that's missing most of the time. And again, if you happen to be on vacation when it comes around, if you happen not to be able to play then you don't get to experience any of it. It's frustrating.
Well, it just felt so weird that they put all this effort to build this system to allow players to run old content and scale down, and then didn't do it in a way that was just available across the board. Like, that should be a thing. You should be able to run dungeons scaled down and get rewards equivalent to your level. And I don't know, like, this is the problem I have with World of Warcraft so often is they come within inches of having a really cool system. But then they do something weird to make it not quite as good as it could be.
Man, I have the most cynical response to that. You know why?
Why?
Because you are still playing it. Because their inability to do it right doesn't stop you from playing it.
Yeah,
That's why it's always subpar and will always be subpar. It's why Final Fantasies is so good, because they knew that they had to do it right and that they have to keep doing it right, or people will just not play their game because they saw it happen before. And WoW has never failed.
Well, I mean, WoW is honestly the Facebook of MMOs. Like, no one really likes using Facebook. There are things that are cool about Facebook, but most people that use Facebook use it because all the people that they know that they need to contact or need to keep in touch with from their family or, you know, their friends or former workplaces are all on Facebook. So they feel obligated to continue to use Facebook.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft's that one common ground where people are still there and still regularly returning. So people play WoW because people play WoW.
Fewer and fewer every year, but yes.
Thank goodness. But there's also this sort of sunk cost fallacy thing going on with it. I mean, for me, I totally see it and recognize it, and I still keep playing it because, well, I've been playing it for years, and I have all of these pixel items and things saved up, and I always sort of want to poke around and see what's new when there's something new. But I know that, like, I get into it and I get hooked, but I don't actually necessarily enjoy it as much as other games that I just really love.
There's a thing for me that I don't know if I've mentioned. It's probably been a while since I mentioned it on this podcast. I may have mentioned it before, but like people only quit MMOs in two ways. They either rage quit or they don't quit. They're either recidivist or they rage quit. And
I disagree because I did neither.
I in general. And it's really rare for someone to be able to disconnect before they're at the point where they hate the game.
I think it depends on the game. I mean, I've wandered away from a lot of MMOs and not gone back just out of sort of eventual boredom and distraction with other things.
Yeah.
But for one that you're invested in, for sure, there's not a lot of ways out.
And that's the thing is like, I know I can't go back and play WoW, because if I went back and played WoW, the next time I quit it, I would quit it in utter disgust and hate it and like would rage about it constantly. And it's like I ride that line already, but I know it would be that much worse.
Well, I remember when you came back during Kata, it was not a great experience for you.
No, it wasn't. Because every time I would come back, I remember all of the things that I didn't like. I would have forgotten all of the things. I would remember all of the things that I didn't like. And for me, like that thing that Grace just mentioned and Belle just mentioned about how it's never quite, it's like close but never quite right. That kills it for me. Because I look at it and I'm like, but you should be better, and you know you don't have to be.
I honestly, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I keep playing it right this second is because I am not actually giving them my money. Like, I'm aware of the fact that they are technically making more money off of me playing this way than they would if I gave them a monthly subscription, but at least I feel like I personally am not spending my money on it, and so I can live a little bit more with the things that I kind of whine and complain about when I know that I'm not spending my own time.
Oh, I know there's a lot of people playing in that way, where they're basically playing the game and making enough gold and buying a token, and then they feel like they're getting off scot-free. And I mean, because like you're not the only one of my friends that's basically doing that, and that's cool. Like that basically gives you a game, and you don't have to worry about it affecting the bottom line.
But I think I have mixed feelings about it because it's absolutely beneficial for me and my situation and the way that I want to play. But it also, I don't actually know that it's very good for the game in the long term.
It feels like it's also just jacked prices up for things that because people need the money to get their tokens, and they know you can now get gold easily, so they can charge more for stuff. So it seems like a lot of things are just priced out of reality for me on the auction house.
I think some of that is also just from Garrisons. It definitely did not help things. I mean, the whole reason why I have enough gold to be able to pay a subscription for 6 months is because I sat in my garrison for a while and accumulated lazy gold.
Well, okay, so I've never been a gold maker ever. Like I usually had a couple thousand on each character, and that was good for me. During this expansion, I bought the 125,000 gold vendor mount that has the transmog in it, and I am now already back up to 135,000 gold, which is just fun. Like, it's unrealistic gold for me. Like, that's more money than I had ever had at any other point in the game. So the Garrisons absolutely flooded the market with gold. And that honestly kind of frightens me going into Legion, because what are they going to charge for shit knowing that there's all this gold they need to soak up now?
Oh, I mean, so
Yep.
I already know that there's a mount that I saw from the beta that I really wanted. It was neat looking. And they're going to be charging, I think, like $1 million, $1.5 million gold. There's just something ridiculous for it from a vendor. And it's like I like making gold and I like playing the auction house some, but generally it's just enough to be able to afford the things that I want, and I'm not sure I want to do it enough to afford a ridiculously priced mount. So it's just another complaint, I think, for me about the Garrisons. I just cannot express how happy I am that they're not a thing anymore.
Wow, adds player housing. Players hate it.
Yep.
Convince people that player housing is a bad idea.
Because they added it in a crappy way. And
Yeah.
it signed the death warrant for any sort of actual player housing, which is incredibly frustrating to me because it's one of my absolute favorite things about WildStar. When it's done well, it's amazing. When it has absolutely no customization and is full of reasons to prevent you from ever going anywhere else in the entire game, it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's always felt like the WoW devs have a specific vision of how you are supposed to play their game, and if you want to play their game in a different way, well, too bad.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. But even as frustrating that is, I'm having a lot of fun this week. Even though I can come up with a whole list of reasons why I shouldn't be enjoying myself, and I don't know, like, I've had a blast this week. I leveled my Outlaw Rogue from 92 to 100, and then I turned around immediately and pushed my 95 Druid to 100, and then I flipped over and started playing my Warlock that was 75 when I started. I'm now 83. I really like the leveling game.
Yeah, I mean, as negative as I have just been in this conversation, I've been enjoying the game more than I have in months and months, probably maybe over a year at least, just because I'm actually out doing things again.
And honestly, like, this is maybe a decent segue into a conversation to be had about Final Fantasy XIV. I love Final Fantasy XIV, but other than Deep Dungeon, I feel like there's just not a lot of good options for leveling alternate classes.
No, there's not.
And it is frustrating. Like, as great of an experience as the game is out of the gate, like, when you have quests to run, it is an amazing experience. But when you are left to fate grind or leave grind or whatever to level characters, it is not a great experience. And it's the sort of thing that I can take in spurts, and I will beat my head against that wall for a while, and then I just don't want to level anything else for another little while. And I know, Tam, you've been throwing yourselves at Deep Dungeon, and is it any better than fate grinding? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, so I've put a lot of time into Deep Dungeon since it came out. And it's not perfect. Like, it's a bit repetitive. Or can be a bit repetitive. Like, it's got some really frustrating parts depending on what you're trying to get out of it. Like, if you looked at Deep Dungeon and said, hey, that's a great way to get an eye level 235 weapon, like, I got bad news for you. You're going to be frustrated. But if you look at it and say, oh, hey, this is a great way for me to level my alt, and by the way, while I do it, I'm going to get some, like, super powerful weapons for either my main or my mains or my alt that I'm now just leveling, like, then it's awesome. Because imagine doing quick dungeons that are different every time, and with not super challenging, but enemies that have mechanics. I mean, the mechanics often boil down to don't stand in the stuff, but generally mechanics. And at the end of it, you get rewards, and there's strategy, and you get a crap ton of XP from it.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't done a thorough breakdown of XP math, but, like, I'm getting a lot.
I know from the last bit, so 41 to 50, you get an entire level of XP.
Like doing 1 to 50?
No, doing 41 to 50.
Oh, yeah. Doing 41 to 50 is worth a ton of XP.
Even in the early stuff, I was getting about 75% of a level per 10 dungeon levels.
And it's like, sure, it scales with how far in, so, like, floors 1 to 10 are not worth a lot of XP, but, like, floors 1 to 10 take 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so at level 50, so right when I stopped getting the huge plus 100% boost, at level 50, I got 20% of a level in 15 minutes doing Dark Dungeon. And, like, that's faster than questing. That, like, legit, I'm in a quest for the first time, much less, doing anything else. Like, I'm leveling this character faster than I leveled my main, despite being able to jump into dungeons and ride the fate train and everything.
Yeah. I think the challenge there is, like, this is a much better way to level alts, but it's still not an amazing way to level alts. Like, I feel like it would be so much better if you could just go back and request on the alt.
Yeah, but this is...
Final Fantasy is a weird game for me because I love alting, and Final Fantasy XIV is, like, the one game where I have very few alt classes, because part of what's fun about having lots of alts for me is going back and doing the quests again.
Yeah. I still wish I could go back and do the quests, like hit the reset button on quests and do them again, but...
I feel like a situation like Secret World would work great for Final Fantasy XIV, where you can just... Yeah, they're all redoable.
I wouldn't mind if there were a system in place for me to say, I'll roll a new character and level it up, and then merge it with my main. Like, just spirit merge that character with my main and get whatever. Like, oh, I leveled this character and now he's a level 100 whatever, or level 60 whatever. That'd be cool. Let me just merge that Like, he's done all the right quests. Merge it with this character and get, everything on one thing.
I think I would even also just accept a situation where you could say, all right, you can reset all of your world story quests and you can do them again, but you'll only get, 2/3 or 3/4 of the XP that you did the first time around.
Or
like, it would still be worth it for me.
Right, or just basically don't get non-gear rewards. Because, like, some of the things in your... There would be ways for people to game the system, especially in the later rewards that gave materials that used to be worth a lot of money.
Yeah. And
whereas the gear itself is, like, never worth any money.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest exploitation of the system is you level up classes a lot. I mean, I'm not, like... I feel like I just heard somebody say... I feel like I just heard the cost to exploiting a leveling system, an alt leveling system, is now you're more invested in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Like that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah. That's a super huge win.
Well, and honestly, like, that's one of the problems with World of Warcraft, not to go back very far into this, but they haven't quite figured out that the way you keep a player invested in your system is by having them constantly alting, and you should do more to support constantly alting.
Make that easier and less painful.
Yeah, because, like, there's a lot of things over there that just don't make sense. Like, why aren't most your currencies at an account level? Like, why can't you take items earned from this character and put them towards, the character that you really want to be playing as your alt?
And don't get me started on the cosmetic stuff and how it doesn't transfer very well between characters, even when they have a whole system that, in theory, is supposed to support that.
Yeah, like, so Grace and I are exchanging mail on a regular basis because I will get items that I've already learned, and I am mailing them to her just to see if she's seen them or not. Or mailing them to our alts, because this item, it's set, like, we have add-ons telling us that we don't know this appearance yet, but only a mail wearer can learn the appearance, or only a cloth wearer can learn the appearance.
That's dumb.
It's super dumb.
But as bad as the transmog system can be, I really wish Final Fantasy had something similar to it, to where you collected appearances instead of collected items. Yes, because most of my vault is just shit I want for transmog purposes.
I have so much stuff sitting on my retainers that's just there in case I might want to transmog to it at some point in the future. It is absurd.
I mean, that's, I would say, the vast majority of what's in my retainers vaults. And I have 6 retainers, and it's all full.
Yeah, I'm a lot less obsessive about keeping stuff, but...
Like, I mean, particularly anything that, I get something, I'm like, I might not be able to get this thing again. I better not throw it away.
See, I'm only like that with stuff that I look at and I'm like, this is so awesome, I must keep it.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I very rarely run into that.
So often, one of these items that I've held on to is just the right item for an outfit I'm trying to build.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, you never know when that, like, pair of shoes that looks kind of neat but isn't amazing is, like, the one thing that actually matches some other awesome piece that you get later.
Yeah.
Well, a perfect example is the Mad Hatter hat. Like, that is an item that is important enough to Grace to build an entire outfit around. My Bunny Samurai hat is the same way. Like, I'm going to build an outfit around that thing. By God, if they ever put in the Gubu outfit, you'll see me tagging in that. Have you guys seen that yet?
That design?
It's
the design? Yes.
Oh,
I want to be a Lalafell Gubu tank.
It's super funny.
But, like, even, with the transmog system, there's so many items that I had laying in my bank somewhere where it's not an exact match. Like, it wasn't really part of the original set, but it works well, so I'm wearing it. And if I wasn't a pack rat like that, I wouldn't have near the head start that I did. And I have a lot of pieces like that for Final Fantasy XIV, so I'm hoping someday maybe they'll put in a system like that. I mean, and it has to save database space for them, too. to save only what appearances you have instead of actual items that have to have stats and durabilities. And
I mean, they technically would have to save both, because people might keep both.
yeah, but like the second I got appearances saved, I wholesale liquidated everything else that was sitting in my bank because I no longer needed it.
Sure, but not everyone does that, is my point.
I would think most would, though. I know I would if that was ever put into Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would also get rid of some of the weirdness, like, if you have a dyeable piece and you dye it, and then you transmog something else to the dyed piece, you get all sorts of weird stuff happening.
Yes.
Well, and they even have, and they have the wardrobe that, like, you can store a bunch of stuff in it that it's clear that the way it's storing it is as a simplified, just like item reference, because, it clears all, any materia out of it. It has to be repaired to full before you can put it in. So they're not storing any of those additional stats, related to the item. So, I mean,
but that isn't being used widely.
Yeah, they could turn that existing wardrobe into something that you can put pretty much anything into and then transmog from, which it was, when I first saw it, was what I kind of assumed that it was, but it's not quite that. Not quite that useful.
Yeah, I always end up forgetting that it exists because I never remember like which things it actually works for.
Yeah, it's a place to go dump your holiday rewards into, once it's been long enough after the holiday that they add them to the list of things that it can store.
Yeah, and certain set pieces for classes can go in there, but it's really hit and miss as to what.
Wait, what are you guys talking about?
The wardrobe in your inn.
Yeah, your in room.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, you can put your rewards from the job artifact item quests, the quests that go up to 50. Those items will all go into it, and then the majority of like holiday cosmetic rewards will go into it.
That is amazing.
And like artifact weapons, I think, can also go in there.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't spend entirely enough time in the inn.
Well, the frustrating thing is like there's no way to get those functionality in your free company house room. And that's really what they need to do, because like once you have a free company house and a room in it, you shouldn't have to go to the inn anymore.
I mean, I wonder how many people have played their little like mini games that are all over the
little
inn.
Mini game collection. Well, I mean, there's only, I think I have maybe 2 mini games.
Yeah.
Do I even have that many?
Yeah, 2 or 3. I don't they unlock for weird things.
Yeah, there's the Manderville one, the whatever it's called, diplomacy or whatever, and I think there's a Magic Square move the tiles around game.
Yeah,
that's all I remember.
Yeah, because that one's patterned after the one that was in Final Fantasy 1, which I always thought was weird that you could play a Magic Square game in Final Fantasy 1.
Final Fantasy has some weird history.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
I'm really looking forward to them announcing the inevitable expansion. I wonder how sad I'm going to be about the classes that I'll have the choice of rolling into.
I am hoping they just give you one of the ones on your list.
As long as I get one of the ones on my list, I'll be happy. I don't even care what I have to do. Like, I don't even care what role it is.
Otherwise, you're going to be a sad panda. A very, very sad panda.
But, like, all I want to do is play a mage with a sword. I feel like this shouldn't be that difficult. It's all I ever want to play.
I want melee plate DPS, but that's not going to happen.
I might. Samurai.
Yep. I mean, I'm almost certain if they put Samurai in, it will be a DPS.
Yeah. I mean, they might still decide that they have too many tanks, but if I would be so happy if they gave me Red Mage Tank. Like, Samurai DPS and Red Mage Tank, I would be so excited. They're not going to do it, but I would be so excited.
I have a feeling they'll be adding, like, one of each again. So you'll get another DPS, you'll get another tank, you'll get another healer.
They did say that I feel like I remember them saying that they thought that making 3 classes was madness.
So it might just be 1 or 2?
So it might just be 1 or 2.
I'd be okay with that.
Honestly, like, I'd be okay with them launching with a single class and then patching a couple more in throughout the cycle.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable way to do it.
Like, Ninja was okay. Like, the way they did Ninja was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and doing that gives people something to look forward to as the the cycle ages more than just, more raids and such.
Yeah, I mean, I got a ton of mileage out of the Ninja coming out as a mid-expansion thing.
The big thing that I'm wanting them to get to is less lag between cool things. And I don't necessarily mean between raid tiers, but there was a big drought between Heavensward launching and the first content patch. And the first content patch was a little bit of a letdown in itself. So I'd like to see more evenly spaced, the Dale Gribble 12 meals throughout the day method of let's throw some stuff in there periodically and keep the interest level high.
I don't know, I felt like it took me a long time to level through Heavensward. By the time I hit max level, you guys had already stopped playing.
Yeah, that you didn't there were outstanding circumstances that kept you from hitting it nearly as hard as we did.
But
I don't remember what they were, but I remember there were reasons why you couldn't play that much.
I was actually playing fairly constantly.
Were you not caught up with the previous expansion stuff?
You started
Yes,
Machinist.
I was. I did start Machinist, but I hit level 50 on that within the week. And then things just dragged on and on. I don't even really know what happened. It was just not happening.
Yeah. It was there was a really big push early, and then there was that problem where Moogle Hell was just awful.
Oh my god, yes, Moogle Hell.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a good way of circumventing Moogle Hell, 100 billion people all doing the Airy constantly.
I tanked a lot of dungeons. That's honestly how I got through Moogle Hell.
Or not the Airy, the one right before.
It's hard to do that as DPS, though.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the DPS queue is 40 minutes per if you're doing it random.
Well, and that's what I think is so great about Darkest Dungeon is if I would have totally done this on a fairly regular basis instead of doing Moogle Hell quests and would have been perfectly happy about it. Because it's just enough to keep me occupied, but not so much that I can't chat with people or do other things. And it's good. It's good XP.
At the launch of Heavensward, I feel like I pushed exceptionally hard to get through.
I pushed hard enough that I burned myself out of it.
Yeah, I think I did too. Because it took me roughly a week and a half to hit 60.
Yeah, I was 60 just ahead of you, just behind you.
No, you were ahead of me, I think, but
I think I was the second guild person.
I think I was 5th or 6th, but yeah, I mean, I was still within the first wave, and yeah, I mean, after that, I don't know, it was really hard to stay invested because I felt like I had pushed so hard to get through because we were looking so forward to the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if we had taken longer, we wouldn't have had that lag where we stopped playing for a while.
Yeah.
Until just recently.
But I think on my side, I also felt like I had to get up there quickly because we were going to try and raid seriously.
I am no longer under any illusions that that's a thing that we're going to reasonably do quickly. And I'm okay with that. Okay, we will, casually and sometime later we'll get a raid together.
I am A-okay with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super concerned about, being anywhere on the progression path. I just like to do fun things.
The progression path of this game is complete madness.
Well, and that was honestly a big challenge at launch of Heavensward is you had Alex, which was super easy to do, and then you had Savage Alex, which was pure madness to do, and there was little middle ground between the two.
Yeah. Or the middle ground was ultra grindy.
Yeah. And that's kind of what killed me. I plowed through the easy stuff, and then all that was left was the hard stuff, and there wasn't a critical mass of people who wanted to even touch Savage.
And honestly, the main reason why I'm not on more than I am is because we haven't reached that point where there's a critical mass of people back and just wanting to run stuff all the time.
Yeah,
And
We're getting
I'm not to the point where like I don't know, like I still just don't want to pug dungeon runs. I can.
I don't pug
I'm
dungeon runs. I'm logging in and I'm doing I'm doing Deep Dungeon. Like,
yeah, but how's that to pug? Like, I mean, is it
super awesome?
okay?
Yes.
Like, it's legitimately fun and interesting and different every time.
Okay.
Like, part of why I like it so much is because I have so many different varied experiences in a really short period of time because it's not a standard party.
Yep, I'm currently running one that has 2 tanks and 2 DPS.
Yeah, I'm running one that's 2 black mages and 2 white mages. And, like, you play that very differently. And it's very different from the kind of thing we would do if we put together a party.
Right.
Like, we would try to make a balanced party, or at least, like, be very used to how we would operate. And one of the things that's really cool about it, and why I keep jumping back into it, is I never know what I'm going to get. And it's going to be different. And we're still going to win. It's not like, it's not like a regular dungeon where I know what I'm going to get, and the question is, do we succeed or not? It's, I don't know what I'm going to get, but I'm pretty sure we're still going to succeed, and that's interesting to me. Plus, it's a way for me... The other thing that's really cool about it is I can tell you that I'm interested in playing a black mage, generally, because you get to see the entire spectrum of the class, and, like, that's really neat. I really like that aspect of it.
I really like that too, because I picked a class, obviously, that I wasn't at the cap yet, and I'm getting to see the abilities ration to me, but within fast enough succession that I'm still getting used to one when I get the next one, so there's no gap where I'm constantly learning things.
Yeah. I mean, I did a complete run as a warrior. As a paladin, not as a warrior. And ultimately, the end of that, I was like, I'm not interested in leveling my paladin anymore. Like, I don't like what this class does at level 60. I'm not going to bother. And like, that's really, for me, that's really freeing. Because it means that I can say, I know what I'm missing out on. I don't have to play this class. I will never feel bad that my paladin isn't max level, like maybe there's something I don't know.
Yeah, I will probably use Deep Dungeon to catch my paladin up, because it feels weird not having it at max level, but from the same token, I really don't like playing a paladin.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I really don't. Like, it's not an enjoyable experience to me. I think warrior is way more interesting.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who feel exactly the opposite. Like, there's people who love paladin tanking, and more power to them. Like, Ash, he likes paladin tanking, but he also likes warrior tanking. So, and probably the other one that I really want to level through Deep Dungeon is Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's the other one I'm doing. But yeah, it's one of those things where I tend to log into games when there's something that I can just log in and know I'm going to do. And Deep Dungeon is really, really good for that for me. Because if no one else is playing, I can still do useful, interesting things without it taking forever in Deep Dungeon. And if other people are on, then I can figure out what I'm going to do with them. Even if I don't feel like running a dungeon.
That's honestly the thing that dictates what game I play from the MMOs, is like, what do I have that still has goals that I feel like I can reasonably accomplish, regardless of having to have that perfect storm of these, 3-4 other people on at the same time.
Yeah. And that's the thing that has really revitalized Final Fantasy XIV for me with Deep Dungeon, is I've had these other classes that I've wanted to level, but there's been no good way for me to do it. And now there is. And even classes that I was sort of passingly interested in, I'm excited about.
Well, I know, like, that's the problem that I've had in Rift lately, is I was back and I was playing it, and I had this goal of, I want to get to the level cap, and then I want to get some reasonable gear. And once I achieved those two goals, I was like, well, I don't really know what the next thing I want to do is. So I fade away and I, log in and get my login rewards periodically, but I'm not doing that. And, Final Fantasy XIV, I had the first step of the relic grind that I was working on slowly, and then I accomplished that, and I felt like I didn't really have a replacement goal other than doing experts. And quite honestly, I just don't want to pug experts. Like, I don't mind running one person down, two people down, but I just don't want to solo queue.
Yeah.
And for the entire weekend, like, I ran nothing but Void Arc to get caught up. And technically, there's still some more Void Arc that I should be running. But, I don't know, like, if I can get over the anxiety of queuing for Deep Dungeon alone, I will probably be happy to keep queuing for Deep Dungeon.
Deep Dungeon is... I don't want to say that I think Deep Dungeon is almost a better experience solo queuing, but it's certainly a more varied one. And I think the most fun I've had with it has been, like, duo queuing with Neph, where...
Oh yeah, we've done a lot of that.
We've done a ton of it, and it's the two of us, and then two randos. So it's like I get the fun of both, I'm running this with friends, and also there's that thing that makes it different every time. I'm like, that's cool. But also it lets me level an alt at surprising speed without hating myself, which is worth a lot to me right now.
Yeah, because the grind gets old. Like, I've probably run a lot more Faiths than most of the people in this channel.
Yeah, I hate running
because I'm close to one of the higher achievements for Faiths. The one that gives you whatever title or that you get from it. But I don't know, like, I can't bring myself to do it. And
I hate running Fates. I mean,
I don't love Fates.
I did exactly enough Yokai Watch stuff to get a weapon, and I stopped because it was torturous. I hate doing Fates, or I hate grinding Fates.
For me, for this Palace of the Dead, Deep Dungeon stuff that I really enjoy is it's giving me the opportunity to get the basics of tanking without the pressure, because you don't really need a tank. If I don't hold aggro, it's not the end of the world.
I will say, like, I feel horrible about playing a healer most of the time because I feel like I'm a massive liability, but just the little bit I've done of Deep Dungeon has given me more confidence that maybe I know more about it than I think I do.
Yeah,
it's exactly how I'm feeling with tanking.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool, like, function of it too.
So little things that I kind of always knew, but guess I didn't know I knew, like add low then heal. Are now just rooted in what I'm doing, because I always felt Scholar was the harder of the healers for me personally, because it goes against what I'm used to playing as a healer. Like, I have generally played mash the button till the bars go up classes, and that's not entirely what's going on with Scholar.
Yeah, Scholar is much more proactive, and I like that. I think it's a great way to learn about that.
And at some point, I really want to do the Yokai Watch thing, because I at least have to have the axe, and I probably want the book as well, because it's an interesting looking book.
Oh man, I'm glad somebody thinks that book is interesting looking.
Yeah, which of the two books?
I don't know. I only remember seeing one of them.
Is it the one that looks like a cat, or the one that has...
It's the one that looks like a cat.
It? Okay.
It's the one that looks like a cat, of course, because I'm a cat person. And cats are amazing. And the machinist gun kind of reminds me of a super soaker, so that's kind of awesome.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah. But that's not a bad thing. I promise, that's not a bad thing. Honestly, I've been really disappointed as a whole with the machinist weapons.
Yeah, none of them looked super interesting.
All of my weapons look the same.
Yeah, but you would think a gun and a power pack essentially would be super easy to build for. There's a bajillion different kinds of guns you could have. Look at World of Warcraft. 100 guns are amazing.
I have a theory about that involves them trying to keep their visuals in a very tight band for future content, so that if they release a Pistolier class, they don't have to worry too much.
The Pistolier can have the really cool looking guns.
No, it can just have different looking. They can have another gun class that looks different without it being visual liability. Because that was a big problem they ran into with Paladin and Dark Knight stuff and Ninja stuff. They had a bunch of Paladin weapons that looked too similar to Ninja weapons.
Well, and honestly, like, a lot of the Dark Knight weapons are simply just scaled up versions of the one-handed Paladin weapon.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I am too, but the impression that I get is very strongly that they're not. And I think that they sort of resent the white mage and black mage staff thing.
Well, that's a problem of their entire making. Like, they really should have given one of those staves and one of those one-hand offhand.
Yeah.
But instead, now, like, they're both staffs. That's just a thing. Like, does anyone use wand and shield or whatever that combination is? Like, no, nobody does.
I mean, partly because there's never any good ones.
Right.
But wand and shield also looks silly.
Yeah, totally.
It looks silly.
Like, had they given white mages flails, that would have looked amazing.
I mean, I kind of don't mind. Like, I kind of like the wand and shield thing, except for the part where, given the choice between a wand and shield and a staff, I'm going to always take the staff.
Yeah.
Staff is always the correct choice.
And thus, why there aren't any good wands and shields.
It's at this point that I want to say that I'm super jealous that Neph is going to go to FanFest.
I'm so excited.
That's super cool. I'm also jealous. When is it?
October 14th.
Nice.
Which is shockingly soon.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. Like, the other day I just had this realization that, oh crap, it's August, and all this stuff comes out in August.
What comes out in August?
Well, the WoW expansion, the next Diablo season, No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky is coming out in August?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, actually,
there's
in a week or so, or two. Like, it's mid-August.
Yeah, WoW doesn't really come out until essentially September. It's like the August 30th or something.
Yeah, but I get to play Demon Hunters on the 9th.
I hope No Man's Sky is a game.
Apparently, there's, like, drama over the size of No Man's Sky, which is, like, ridiculously small given that it's mostly procedural content. I want to say it's, like, 6 gig, and people are freaking out that there's, like, not enough game. There can't possibly be enough game because it's only 6 gigs.
I feel like that demonstrates the fact that most people have no idea what they're talking about as far as video games goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a procedural game. Procedural games don't need a lot of space because they're recycling content over, or like they're either building them on the fly or they're recycling elements as they're building the levels.
Game ever?
I don't know. My favorite game ever, technically, is Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, that game is like 100 megabytes.
Yeah, it's tiny, and it also has a ton of recycled assets.
Yeah.
But I find it funny that this is a thing that people are concerned about. Like, because a game is tight, and honestly, like, to me, that's more kudos that they didn't bloat up the disc with, like, a lot of stuff that they didn't need.
Yeah.
Because you know what takes up a lot of space? Uncompressed audio.
Ugh.
But I don't remember. There's actually a lot of things that are on the schedule for August, but I'm drawing a blank as to what else. Then Rise of Iron for Destiny comes out in September, which I'm sure will cause a massive resurgence for me of playing Destiny. Because I've kind of failed over the last couple weeks to play much Destiny.
Yeah, I was playing it fairly regularly, and then, like, WoW suddenly became a thing again, and people started playing Final Fantasy XIV again, and Destiny dropped right off of the radar.
Yeah, my games are Final Fantasy and Overwatch and Pokemon.
Pretty well just Final Fantasy. Although I really do want to start playing Dragon Age Inquisition.
It's a good game.
Someday I would like to play through Dragon Age Inquisition and actually manage to keep playing it for more than a day at a time.
I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen until somebody makes it a game of the month.
Probably not.
Is this a hint?
I don't know, I've never played it. I played the first 2, and as much as everyone seems to love it, I would play it if someone made it the game of the month, but I'm not, like, enthusiastic about it.
I like it so much less than I liked 1 and 2, and that's my problem. I don't 100% know why I like it less, but I just do.
Like, I loved the first one and pretty much hated the second one. So that left me not really excited to bother anymore.
I didn't love it until I got to a particular point in it, at which point it took off hugely for me and I couldn't put it down. Like, just could not stop playing it until I was done.
Maybe I haven't hit that spot yet. Because there's really been nothing driving me forward to play that game more.
I kind of got stuck in a certain place in the first game, and I still haven't played the second one because I was so determined to finish the first one. And now I don't have my PS3 here, so I ended up getting Inquisition on PC. So
Kodra isn't here, so I can't give him a hard time about it, but it amuses me so much that for someone who likes his games just chock full of bleakness and sads, that he doesn't like that series.
Right?
Like, I recommended that. I gave that game my highest recommendation to him because I know how much he likes his sads.
He likes 12 sads out of 10.
And like, he loved Papers, Please, and he loves just like dark stuff. And this, like, he was like, this is too dark for me. It's too bleak. Like, I hate this world. And I'm like,
Wow.
Okay.
It's the only game series that makes me side with mages. I feel kind of dirty doing so, but it makes me side with mages.
It's okay, we forgive you.
Mages are people too.
Yeah, right?
But only sort of. Only sort of.
Until
And
a
I say
horrible
this as
demon gets in
someone-
their head. and then they
Exactly.
see people.
I say this as someone who doesn't even play mages.
Yeah, like, no, I mean, I like other people to play the mages, but although, like, while we're podcasting, I'm playing the hell out of this warlock, but so maybe I'm softening to finger wigglers.
Doesn't seem likely.
No, it really doesn't.
Like, your first clue was Warlock.
Yeah, it's a pet class. It is now a pet army class, because in addition to your normal demon, you have all these other spells that give you temporary demons. So
That also explains why Summoner's pretty well the only thing I will level in FF14 that isn't melee.
Summoner largely for me was a free class because I was going to level, Scholar.
For me, it's the opposite.
Although
I get
really,
a free healer out of the deal.
the weird thing about it is like, I started off hating Arcanist, and then I started to like Arcanist. Like, I'm an adorable Olafel, and I have adorable Carbies. And then I became a Summoner, and I just wanted my Carbies back.
I remember when you had
Yeah.
that revelation, you were playing Arcanist wrong.
Yeah, no, seriously, that was... and honestly, that revelation greatly improved me playing Warlock.
Dot all of the things and run away.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. It's like, I don't know why that never clicked for me, but it doesn't matter that I'm burning this thing down. I should be burning all of the things down.
Yep.
I mean, I had never really played dot classes. Like, I played a shaman a little bit in EQ, but I hated it because apparently I was doing that wrong too.
Yeah. That
'Cause-
was what I learned that I learned that from quad kiting as a druid in EQ.
Yeah, no, like, and I always tried to burn things down as a druid with the fire spells.
Oh god, I'm so sorry. That's not how that works.
So the most druidy thing I ever really got into playing was a ranger, and I absolutely kited on a ranger, but bow kiting made more sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, run backwards while plinking things with arrows. Sure, I can do that. That's actually the game that taught me how to run backwards in a game.
Is it a Disney movie? There's some movie that has like the image that's in my head of like this sorceress just draining the life of everything around her as like knights and archers and so on all just fall at her feet. And like that's my image of dot classes, is just someone calmly standing there while winning. And like not apparently exerting very much effort, but winning.
Yeah, I don't think this is a Disney movie. That doesn't sound very Disney movie.
It certainly doesn't sound
Could
familiar
be
to
New
me.
Disney.
I don't even know. I don't even know where it's from, but it's like a really clear picture in my head.
I have a really incomplete picture of Disney because I've not even seen The Lion King. So, I don't know, like there's a lot of Disney movies I've not seen.
I can't decide if I think you'd like or not like The Lion King at this point.
I love Pixar film. I've seen all of them,
Yeah.
but I've just not watched that many actual Disney films.
I think you'd like The Lion King.
I think so.
Like
Probably, but
it seems like a Belle movie, weirdly.
but at this point, like, I just haven't had a reason to watch them.
Yeah.
Understanding all of the cultural references.
Yeah, but I can understand that just from the memes. I mean, come on, like it's really easy to catch the plot points from memes after you've seen a bunch of them.
It's true.
I did watch the Princess and the Frog or whatever that one was from a few years back. That one was kind of awesome because it has voodoo. Voodoo is awesome.
So as a minor aside, there's a recommendation that I read where if what you want to do is get your glowy weapon from Palace of the Dead in Final Fantasy, what you should do is start 2 files simultaneously and do them in parallel. And having tried that this go through, I 100% agree. Like, do 2 1 through 10s, 2 11 through 20s, so on and so forth, and go through the entire thing that way. Because the timing works out super nicely. I'm going to finish this. I'm on floor 40 my second time around, and I'm at plus 24, plus 23, which is a really good place to go into the final set of floors with.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like, I never would have considered it, but I get it. And it works really well and isn't the total nightmare of my last run through, which was, I hope you like seeing the first 40 floors over and over again and getting nothing out of them, because you can only, because I was at 27 of 27 of 30 and 30 of 30.
I'm at 30 and 19.
Wow.
But I think that now that one's maxed out, if I would get a bonus from it, it goes to the other one.
It does it?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
Well, regardless, I think I'd probably benefit by starting another file and going over the one. Like, I'm only at round 13-ish or so on my weapon and armor.
Oh, that doesn't reset.
Right. But getting through another set of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Because,
right.
like, at 13-ish or so, I'm still probably going to get some off of 1 to 10 and off of,
Right. You ran, like, 1 through 10 and got to 13 or so, didn't you?
Well, no, we did 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and then I had to bail, I think.
Okay.
But I can essentially reset that file if I wanted to, and without losing my weapon and armor levels, right?
Yep, or convert it from a fixed party to a matched party and random the rest of the way up.
Yeah, cool.
Which I've done a lot of. Like, I nuke files kind of all the time. Unless I have a group that's like, hey, we're going to go 1 through 50.
Well, I mean, that's a serious time commitment to do that with a group.
It's a big jump. I mean, you're looking at probably 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, depending on how lucky/unlucky you are.
Yeah.
And, like, if you have your clear it quickly strategy down.
I find the hour time constraint to do the 10 levels is becoming less and less of an issue.
Yeah, as you figure out how to do it, that hour stops being super tight. Like, I haven't had groups fail in an hour for a very long time. And
well, the general population is probably getting significantly better at doing Deep Dungeon.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap things up. So we've gone on for a while now. Anybody else have any last things they want to discuss?
Nope.
What I can think of.
This is another one of those cases where we went in not really having anything to talk about, but we found plenty to talk about throughout the night that we didn't even get to some of the things that we had planned on talking about, so...
Nope, because I know Ghostbusters was definitely on that list.
Yeah, and Star Trek Beyond was as well, and hopefully we'll catch those. So if life goes as planned, we should be doing our Game of the Month show over City Skylines next week, when hopefully everyone's back, or back enough to do that show, and then maybe we can talk about some of those things on the week after that. I know I will have seen Ghostbusters by then. Anyway, hopefully everyone enjoyed the show and didn't get lost completely when we drifted into World of Warcraft land. And hopefully they will join us all next week when we do our Game of the Month show. And Neph, it was awesome having you. You should totally show up more often because you're always enjoyable to have on the show.
Well, you should just invite me more often.
You are always welcome. Like, you don't have to just wait on an invitation. Like, you know when we record.
Once somebody's been on the show once or twice, and like it's come up more than once. Like maybe we should make it more clear. But like once you've been on the show once or twice, if you want to hop in, like just hop in. Like just show up.
Especially if you have something to talk about
at the right time. I'm pretty sure we'll hop in, especially if you have something you want to talk about.
Yep. And I fully expect that when, you get back from FanFest, that you will be on the show and you can tell us all about FanFest.
I was just gonna say I will definitely at least be on the show the week after FanFest.
Yep.
You tell us how awesome it was and make us all jealous.
And definitely give me the week to let me recover from Vegas.
Well, especially given who you're going with, so.
Yeah, who I'm sharing a hotel room with? Yes.
Yeah.
Shenanigans will ensue.
Anyway, so yeah, this is the part where I normally say goodnight, and the rest of you also say goodnight. So, good night!
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
7th Dragon 3.
7th Dragon 3?
7th Dragon 3
What?
Code BFD is a
What
game.
the hell?
Pretty
What?
Sure. It's a game that sounds interesting, and I'm pretty sure Ash would be able to tell me a bunch about, but that I don't know anything about, and I don't know if I want to buy.
My god, that name is horrible. That is madness.
It's a JRPG with like Final Fantasy style job classes, except that some of the job classes are like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist.
Oh.
Huh.
I thought you were going to say like
Alright.
postal worker.
No, that's Bravely Default.
Oh god. Okay, so I've heard from Tam and Thalen, and so Neph and Grace say words.
I guess I can say words. I know a few words. I think I have the best words.
Yay for
So-
best word.
I have the best words.
Okay.